Hello everybody. What I'm doing right now is changing the faceplate. This is a French bow, so it's worth doing what I'm doing to it, which is replacing the faceplate. So the faceplate is made out of bone. Used to be that you would have ivory, and now we have other materials that can go in here. For the cheaper bows that are typically under $500, you would see that they're using plastic because it's easy to bend. But every bow has a curvature in there, and we try to match that curvature so that then we can get a straight piece of bone and then put it in the jig and press it down so that it forms the curvature. So to press that down, it has to be soaked in an acidic solution that has to be oxidized so that the bone or whatever material you're using, but typically, animal product, can soften and then be pressed and then be molded. In this case, I'm close to, it sat overnight and it's very close to where it needs to be. After I do that, as you can see, I would have to then trace the head of the bow, then cut out the excess material so that then I can fit in there. And after it's fitted and glued in it, then I have to cut in the mortise. So I have to make that mortise back so that the bow can be rehaired. Once it's glued though, it doesn't end there. I have to make sure that the sides in there, after they've been cut, blend perfectly with the sides of the wood on all sides. And then I have to thin it out, because this is quite thick for this bow. Thin it out so that it has the right contour, and then the beak is also cut precisely so that if the bow falls on its tip again, then it will protect the wood. Like in the case of this, the bone broke and it protected the wood so the wood itself wouldn't break. So this is usually possible, and it's good to do on bows that are under $500, because you have to do every hair. So by the time you do every hair and the restoration of the head, you're usually in the $200 price point, depending on the quality of the craftsman that you're using. And the expertise will determine, of course, the expense of the restoration. And bows that are under $500, you, at that point, imagine a bow that you only paid $200. Then there's no worth in doing all this restoration, because you're putting in as much as you're gonna get out of it, and probably the stick itself is not that good anyways, and so you got issues in there. So this type of restoration is reserved for bows that have value, residual value, and not all bows should have this kind of restoration. So keep that in mind when you do it. But on this nice French bow, we're going to go through the restoration process and get that fitted. So, and we'll show you some of these steps in just a little bit. So at the beak in here, it's going to need a piece of liner. Usually what we use is ebony. So this piece of ebony is going to be glued at the beak for protection for the tip. So in case you drop it, or people who like to tap their bows on their foot, then it gets protected from that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fit the liner to the bone piece.
Excuse me, this is Tirza, David's wife, and I'm filming this episode. I would like to let you know some additional information while David's doing his work on this faceplate restoration. So I'll be chiming in here and there throughout this video. The perspective that I'm coming from is a very personal one. Not because David is my husband, but because I am a violinist and I feel compelled to speak out as I've seen with my own eyes what goes into a faceplate restoration. I am truly amazed at how few professional musicians, including myself, understand truly the tools that we use to work and play every day. For instance, I wasn't even aware that our bows have this tiny little piece of ebony that David is spending so much time cutting and filing and working on that will be part of the protection for the faceplate.
It's called cyanoacrylate glue, and it's a structural glue that bonds with this type of material really well. And I keep the pressure there to make sure that it bonds. And it takes just a few seconds to do it.
There are so many steps involved in bow work or the restoration process, which requires much patience, steady hands, and an eye for tiny, tiny details.
Doing this is getting all the way just to the outside of those marks.
Let's speed things up a bit. By increasing the tempo of this video from moderato to presto, we'll be able to view in just a few short minutes what are portions of a lengthy amount of time in the process from start to finish, or should I say de capo al fine in musical terms.
So I'm gonna leave it there for a few hours for the glue to completely bond with the materials, and then I can start carving the faceplate for the mortise.
And friends, there we have it. A new faceplate is born. It will provide protection for the wood of the player's bow, little tiny ebony piece and all. And once David finishes rehairing the bow, it will be ready once again to be utilized as an incredibly complex tool and work of art for its player.